Bruins Beat, brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And we're presented by Game Time. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I am Evan Marinofksy, joined today by Andrew Raycroft. Razor, what's up?
Not much. I just saw my name tagline that stays on Razor here on the StreamYard. I should have been more professional and put Andrew, but I am great. Hockey season is upon us.
It is upon us. And no, I like the nickname. It's, everybody calls you on Nesson and
everywhere. Yes.
Morning Brew with you and Billy. So it's, Razor is an appropriate nickname. Nothing really to talk about. Not much going on.
Issues this year, which is nice. No rotations to talk about. It's just nice and quiet. Yeah.
It's how was your summer? It was probably pretty good and all that. Training camp has started, and it started with a bang. First press conference of the season. John Sweeney comes out, makes his comments about the Jeremy Swayman situation. Obviously, won't give specifics on where they're at in terms of term and cost and everything like that. But Jeremy Swayman not at camp. They have yet to come to any sort of agreement. By the sounds of it, it doesn't sound like they're very close. Where are you at with this whole situation?
It's hard to have a real full opinion, right? Like that's and I've gone. I held out in like 2006. It was a different time, a different place, different world. But a lot of it comes down to what you feel you're worth and what the team feels you're worth and what the league thinks you're worth. And you're just going around and looking at comparables and what other people have. And then you're trying to shoehorn that into the team aspect of that. I get it. I think I understand why this is a little more difficult because there really isn't anything to point at, any other player to point at, any other goaltender to point at and say, okay, that's me. You're Jeremy Swayman, had an unbelievable season last year. Of course, an unbelievable finish, was just so fantastic in the playoffs. And deserves to be considered one of the top 10 goalies, probably 6 or 7, but we'll say 10 for even sake. But, and this is the big but, is that he's never played more than 43 games in a regular season. So as great as that playoff run was, when you're an NHL organization, you're looking at the top 10 goalies. And if you looked at all other top 10 or top 7, top 6, I'm pretty sure they've all played more than 43 games in the regular season. So then you're backing on the other side of it. On the team side, you're saying, well, how can we go to number 1 or number 2 or number 3 top paid goaltender in the National Hockey League when we haven't done that yet? So I guess it's a long-winded answer of saying I'm not surprised they're at this spot. I did think they were going to find a compromise quicker, but it seems as though one or both sides need a little bit more pressure to get where they need to get to and find the middle.
Yeah, I look at this situation and I, like you during the summer, I thought this was going to be wrapped up, probably right before camp or a couple days in. And by the way, we're recording on day 2, so it could happen on day 3 or 4. It could happen. And I think, people are panicking. Obviously, the trade stuff, pops up. We'll get into that. I still think that I think he definitely wants to be here. I think it's clear he wants a long-term deal here, which obviously means he wants to be here. So I still think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, something gets done. The problem, though, and you know this, is it's important for a goalie to be in training camp and to be playing and to be getting those reps, especially with their own teammates, practice reps, all that stuff. I know you mentioned 2006. What exactly happened with that? Because that was a little bit before my time. So
So I was maybe a week. Like it wasn't long. It didn't really affect anything. I know I wasn't around at least the black white game, maybe one exhibition game, and then but so I would say yes, the holdout doesn't become an issue physically for 2 weeks, I would say. But by the end of camp, you're going to want 5 days of camp at the end where everyone's ramped, because you can accelerate your ramp if you're Jeremy Swayman and if you're that good. And again, of course, he's skating and staying in shape, and you can kind of miss these days. These days are chaotic. If anyone's gone to Warrior, seen the first days of training camp, they're chaotic for a goaltender, especially. You're just trying to get through it. You've got 3 goalies rotating nets. You've got 100 people in the dressing room. It's more those last few games. You don't want to start the season without seeing an exhibition game, because then you're chasing the first month. And if it doesn't go well, you don't get a puck bounce here and there, that can start getting in your head a little bit. So I think for a goaltender, it would be nice for that last week, but I don't think, my sense is also like, well, I shouldn't say that. I think they both recognize that. I think both sides would have some kind of a deadline within training camp where it's a little more code red than what the first day of camp is. The first day of camp is just annoying for the team, because everyone's got to answer it. We have to talk about it. Don has to go up there. Like, that's okay. Jeremy wins that one. And then, but there's got to be there's some point a drop, a code red date where both sides are saying, okay, we really need you here now. And the player says, I really need to be there now.
Well, it's what, I mean, you heard Don Sweeney the other day mention December 1st as a potential deadline, and he mentioned it a couple times. And I think a lot of people looked at the, going in the deadline as, at middle to end of camp, and they're mentioning December 1st, which, again, he has to play before then to get a year of service time under his belt. Do we get into the regular season without a deal done?
I think, that December 1 is just the best way for Don Sweeney to put it. Because if he said middle of training camp, if he said the regular season opener, guess what he has to do? He has to go have another press conference and explain why it's not done again. Right. So when I heard him say December 1 a couple times, I heard him being very matter of fact. I heard him being very black and white, that this is how long we have till. And on December 2nd, we can talk about whether he's in the lineup or not. But until then, we're going to try and get this thing done behind doors, and you guys will be the third to know when it's actually done. But let's not talk about it till then.
Yeah, and he almost puts a little of the onus on Swayman's camp as you don't want to be here. Or, we don't want to be at the negotiating table around Thanksgiving being like, all right, we got to hash this out. Like, unless, or you lose a full year. And again, we're on day 2. So this might get
we're talking scenarios, right? Like, that's what we do.
We have
and that's what you have to do. But I think, and I'll say it now, and I'll probably say it right as we're closing the show, that is what this gets done in a 5-minute conversation. Both sides know exactly where they're at. They've talked. To Don's point, it's not like they're not talking. I'm sure they're having a little phone call every day or every other day. They have a bad meeting, they might let it go 2 days just to let things calm down. But you're talking all through this: player, agent, player, agent, team, player, team in some scenarios. So again, this gets done in a 5-minute conversation. So it is only day 2, but we have to do it.
How you've been through this? How do those conversations go? I imagine it's you with your agent saying, I want this, and him saying, you're worth this, don't move off this. And, the GM, how does that work? I mean, it's not all sitting in a room together all the time, because the agent is often out doing other things at other events. I see them at at every event that you and I are at every weekend. So it is over the phone. How can those go down?
Any number of, like, it's exactly what you would think. I think it's one conversation, you can feel like you're really getting steam. You got off the phone, and then you're like, yeah, all right, we're moving. This is starting to go the right way. And then you follow up with that conversation, and then it feels like you're never going to get it done. It's like, oh, we're going back to square one. I don't like these guys. What are they doing? They're screwed. You get a lot of that. So it's really, and that's why I say it's a 5-minute call, because it is day to day. And some days feel really good, and some days feel really bad and really far away. And I think that's why you get some of these reports too, right? If a player or an agent or a team, any of these three entities of this get off the phone and have a really bad day, you're going to tell someone's going to find out about that probably. And that's a way to like move this situation along as well. But so again, it's fickle. It's really fickle because of what's at stake and how much pressure is on everybody, and how emotional it is emotional. Like there's no way around it. And of course it's business, not personal, but it's emotionally business emotional.
Well, I think it's hard not to take it personal. And that's where, like, you look at the arbitration hearing last year, and again, the Bruins consistently say he took us to arbitration, but still to hear those things about, if I said, Andrew, you think you're worth X, but you had those 3 bad games in December, and you were, bad on your blocker side, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that sucks to hear. So yeah. I get that end of it. I think where people are sort of annoyed, or not everybody, but some are annoyed with just like the talking about it and things, and that there might be kind of a longer wait to sign something. And I think it's Swayman kind of just digging in his heels a little, or his side at least digging in their heels a bit.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Because and we've again we've only really heard from Don recently, so it's easy to listen to that and say, okay, Jeremy's the one really digging in on this. He's the one not showing up, so you assume he's really digging on this. But maybe somewhere there's somewhere in him and with his agent where they're saying this is what we're worth, and it's the Bruins that are digging in. And that's where the back and forth happens, right? And that's where the miscommunication can happen at times. And I would say too, like it does. As much as it's the entire Bruins organization can get personal just as much as a player. Like I've seen and been around teams and play, like where the team takes it personally what a player is doing as well. So it can go both ways. Again, I don't think we're at any of these situations where it's DEFCON and they're ready to be, I don't think it's gotten to the arbitration type personal level. I don't get that sense. I haven't really dug in a lot because it is sensitive, but I don't get that sense that that's what's happening right now. I think there's still the pressure cooker hasn't hit high yet.
It hasn't. It has. I think people are coming off that Sweeney press conference and seeing that clearly he's angry about that they're not in a, they're not where he wants them to be. He's not, he's not signed. I get why he's not participating in training camp. I mean, he's not signed yet. Like that, yeah. That makes sense to me. Like some people I see on Twitter being like, why isn't he there? It's like, well, because he's not signed. Like, are you going to go play? Are you going to go do something that for somewhere that you don't actually work at? Like, are you Kramer and Seinfeld when he right. Goes to Brant Leland? Like, no, you're not going to do that. He doesn't technically work for them right now. So there is that. I want to dive deeper into this because you have a very interesting perspective on this. But first, quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your picks are still live. Big questions going into the football season. Will Patrick Mahomes throw for more or less than 267.5 yards one week? Will Jalen Hurts throw for 240.5 passing yards another? Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Now, back to the show. So you mentioned sort of that 5-minute call where it could be cleared up a bit. And, is that one side kind of saying we need to come to an agreement? We'll try to make some concessions. Obviously time is of the essence. I would assume Swayman wants to come back with a good amount of camp left, definitely before the season starts. Is that what it is? One side saying, all right, we'll up our offer, or it's, Swayman's camp saying, all right, we'll take a little bit less than we would have asked for. Is that how that can kind of come down?
Yeah, it's that. It's, a lot of times too, it's a little creativity, and that's really what, especially the agents, that's what they get. This is their money. These are the deals that every player that they do have to do at some point, and they have to get creative when they hear what the team's offering. They hear what their player wants. Okay, how do we? And again, 8 times 10, 8 times 6. It's easy to say 8 times 8, but that's not how it works. Then you go 5 times 7.5. You go 3 times 9. You get creative within that as you talk to the team, as you talk to the player, and as you go through this process. Both sides start thinking about, okay, how do we make it fair, where both of us feel like we're winning, both of us feel like we can get the maximum amount out of this. And a lot of it's you kind of start with salary, you go to term, then you go to like the bonuses, and you see how a lot of these deals are structured now, where everyone's getting it up front, and as a player, okay, how much more is it worth if I get all this money up front and I have it in an account at 5% for the next 8 years? How much more money? Like, you talk to the financial advisor, you talk to the lawyers, so a lot of times it just comes down to creativity, where you make it sound as a player you're not losing. So you go to the team, okay, this kind of works for us. What do you think of this? Where can we go off of this? And you're not just ramming your head against the wall over and over again, going from 8-6 or 8-10. Just trying to hammer down it. Well, why don't you just go 8-8? It's not that. It's more that creative aspect where, okay, when's the money coming in? What's the signing bonus? What's the turn? Let's try and, let's go off of what's a 4-year deal look like for you guys? What's a 5-year deal look like for you guys? What's a 6? So you go kind of through all those stages, and that's usually what cracks open the door enough to be that creativity that, especially the agent, but also the teams come up with that sometimes, where it's like, okay, what do you think of this? And let's do that. And that's any of the negotiations I've been, any of my like the players that you talk to, usually when it's a bit of a stalemate, it's something that's a little bit different that neither have really come to the table with, that gets it done at the end. Yeah.
And also as an agent, your worst fear is, you get your player to a relative, a deal that he's worth more than, and in a year you're not his agent anymore. Like, I think there's also that end to it too.
That's what's caused some of this, is that the cap is actually going to fly up, and everybody knows it, but it's really hard to still put a value on it, and what it's going to look like in 3 or 4 or 5 years. And that's really the sticking point, I think, for this one, is what there's just, again, it goes back to the comparables, in that there's really no comparable to where this salary cap's been coming out of pandemic and COVID. and what those last deals have been done. It's just a different environment, and that's adding to this a little bit too. Is what the cap, if the cap's over 100 million in 3 years, it's gonna be a different environment all around.
Yeah, and I think you hear him, like he went on that podcast like a month ago and mentioned, I want to set the standard for goalies. I think we can both agree that he is not in a position yet to really set a true standard, but I understand where he's coming from in the sense that if the cap goes way up and he takes, 7 or 8, 6.5, 7 million on a long-term deal now,
it's probably
when that
not
cap does, it's not going to look good. And I think they understand that as we understand that. So there is, of
course. And listen, the Bruins understand that too, right? But they have to do the business. Like they can't just, it can't be willy-nilly either. So again, that's where it's like, I think it's important for everyone. Like, I'm sure they all recognize that. And that wouldn't make anybody angry. It's just, this is how it is. And we can't go to 15 million a year, even though you might be worth that in 8 years. Or what if the cap's 150 million, then you are worth that right now. That's not how it works. Right. And that's a sticking point, which has caused more, just made this much tougher.
And I think that's why you hear, the reports of him wanting like the McAvoy deal of 9.5 million. And we all look at that and go, you're not near 9.5 million right now. But if that's an 8-year deal in 2 or 3 years when the cap is much higher and, presumably he's better, or has, at least played more, maybe he is worth way more than 9.5. And guys like Shesterkin are getting way past that. That's the thing. But it's hard to do that right now. It's hard to do that in this environment. And to do that, which is why I think ultimately, I know they say they're continuing to work on a long-term deal. To me, it feels like this is going to be like a 4-year deal or sort of like not a prove it deal, but sort of, 4 years, somewhere in the 7 range. Do it, play well under that and then get a much bigger contract down the road. And we can get into sort of projections and all that stuff. First, though, quick word from our friends over at Game Time. Fall is beginning, which means football is back. Nothing beats a college football atmosphere. And with both college and NFL games, who doesn't love a good tailgate? Get to the game with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. This fall, my friends and I are going to the Patriots-Titans game in Tennessee. And how will we get tickets for the game? Game Time, of course. The super deal has been amazing to us in the past, and there's no doubt it will be great to us again. I just love the curated deals, which make it easier to find the best price on great seats. Some other features I love are the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, back to the show. So obviously, projection wise, salary, contract wise, everyone's kind of debating what's he worth? What is the right number? And I think it's so hard, as we've sort of illustrated, because he's 25. He's young. Like, what he's worth now is not what he's going to be worth in 3 years, for better or worse. He could be, he could crumble with no Linus Ullmark, or he could, what we expect him to be, is at least a top 10 goalie, potentially even top 5. So if you, in a perfect world, what is his contract in your eyes, or his next contract?
So I guess, the issue, and you just mentioned like the 4-year deal, and that seems right. You look at the Ottingers, the Shesterkins, the Demkos, the Soroses have all had that 4-year deal next. That's just what they've done. They've come off of their entry-level deal. They moved into their next deal, proved themselves as a starter in the National Hockey League at a pretty high level. Then they went for the 4 or 5 year deal, knowing that they're going to be 30 on the back of it, and that'll be their last deal if they're great. If they're not great, they put money in the bank and they can go and get another 3 or 4 year deal and continue to be a starter in the NHL. So that's really probably the most likely scenario. And I think that's more likely because of not the impossible guesstimate of what the cap is going to look like 8 years from now. I just feel too, and you just mentioned before the break that seems most logical. Now, again, maybe they have to be creative off of that. 1 year earlier, 1 year behind. I don't know. Like that's where you get into the minutia of the deal and exactly how much you're taking off the table, how much you're putting on the table. Like all the numbers get really in the weeds at that point. But it does feel, and I think common sense tells us all within the hockey world that 4 year deal is probably the easiest way to get this done.
It feels that way in terms of, he can get a fairly, little bit of a higher payout, and you get the whole idea of, hey, 3 years from now, we'll go back to the negotiating table and you'll be a totally different goalie and better numbers. I mean, again, like that's the other thing. His highest he's ever ranked in Vezina voting is 7th. He's played no more than 43 regular season games in a season. He's been in a tandem. He had that great playoff, those 2 rounds this year, but to be, a true standard setter, I think, is asking a lot right now. As a former player, there was when Brad Marchand spoke at captain's practice like a couple weeks ago, he mentioned, we don't talk about contracts, things like that. And some people thought that might be kind of a thinly veiled shot at Jeremy Swayman and this and that. No, we're not going to get into that stuff. But I wonder if you, as a former player and as a former goalie, I don't remember. I mean, there must have been guys on your teams that had long contract negotiations or testy ones. But, if this does move in to, later than the middle of training camp and it's getting close to the regular season or it gets into the regular season, do guys in that room start to go, come on, dude, sign the freaking contract? Or is it the other way where it's like, no, get what you're worth, go set that standard?
So you're going to get both of those things, but not at a high temperature. Not in it's going to be in passing. It's going to be, a roll of the eyes one way or the other while you're having lunch.
Yep.
No one really digs into other people's business. And it's a cliche, and I hear it a lot. You hear players talk about it, but it's, at least when I was around, when I played, again, the young guys might change a little. They might talk about it a little bit more. But when I was in dressing rooms and guys were going through it, you're pretty respectful of both sides. Of course, one side's paying your bills, and the other side could be you next year, the year after. It could always be you. You could always be in that. And so I think what you hear from guys is pretty typical. Again, the Brad Marchand comment, again, I'm sure he has his views. I'm sure he's said them to somebody, whether it's his buddies at home or his wife or someone asking him that he trusts. He probably gives them the real, this is what I think. But in the dressing room, you're pretty respectful of both sides, and the business as usual. You're not. If the Bruins lose the first 3 games and Swayman's not there, I don't think anyone's going to look at each other and say, "Hey, this guy's screwing us." I never heard that. You could, you might, and again, you might think man, it'd be nice to have him, or that kind of stuff. But again, once the games start going, you're more worried about winning and losing rather than who's not here.
Yeah, and it's funny because you hear people kind of speculating if the Bruins start the season and the Korpisalo-Bussy tandem is great, you can trade Jeremy Swayman. And it's no, I don't think it's that easy. And I think you're expecting a lot out of a tandem with Bussy, who's never played an NHL regular season game, and Korpisalo is coming off a tough year in Ottawa. It's hard to sit here and project that because it could easily go the other way.
Things, right? It's 2 separate things. It's that would be, if they go on a 10-game run at the start of the season, that's great, but I don't think it really affects. And if they go over, it might put a little more leverage on both sides. But at the end of the day, and it comes all the way back to the start for us, is that both of these groups want to get this done.
Yes.
Jeremy wants to get it. He's here. He wants to get it done. He's not trying to go somewhere else. And the Bruins want to get this done. They're not trying to find someone else. So I think that's the starting point, that when you have those kind of conversations on what the season starts, I think you go back to that and know that everyone wants this deal done one way or the other.
If they get down to it, again, we're speaking ahead of time, ahead of where we actually are. But if things got to the regular season and things sort of soured, and no one was giving an inch, could you see the Bruins threatening to trade him potentially to sort of want him to get to the negotiating table better?
I mean, again, certainly not publicly. We're not going to hear that's not yeah. So, but no,
I don't think Sweeney's going to come out and be like, all right, we're threatening with going to Utah.
No, I don't think that helps anybody. I really don't. I don't think teams do that. I don't think Toronto Maple Leafs did that to William Nylander a year and a half ago. I don't think that's a good way of doing business. So no, I don't think that's on the table in any way whatsoever. If they've said they're not going to trade him, then I don't think they're going to use that as a ploy at some point.
Yeah, the trading stuff I keep going back to of this is a franchise pillar. This is your franchise goalie. You drafted him, you've developed him, you expect him to be the guy.
Yeah.
I don't think you trade him out of spite. You don't go, all right, we're going to deal you to Anaheim just because we're going to show you. It's okay, well then show them. The Anaheim Ducks are going to get a great goalie. Why would that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, unless of course it really sours and things go south, and then that's a whole nother thing. But to me, the trading element you consistently hear, I look at and go, I'm not anywhere near that, because I still think they get this deal done in the next couple of weeks.
We're 2 months from that. It really is pointless, I think, to talk and not to poo-poo anybody. I'm just, it's not even, I don't even think, it doesn't even cross my mind that for a long time. Because again, there's a lot of time for the pressure would have to be astronomical to get to that point, and it's nowhere near that. Again, missing the fitness testing at training camp is a blip. Once this deal gets done, no one will remember.
Yeah, and once it's done, we're not talking about it for a long time.
That's right, exactly.
Because Lord knows we all want this to get out of the way. We were talking about this all summer, talking about this now. Razor, obviously, season's starting. Morning Brew, I assume, is getting right back into gear. What can people look forward to from you this season?
Back at Essence, so that'll be great. We're just working through the schedule, maybe get on a road trip or two, but pretty much status quo. Like you said, Morning Brew will be up and running again, which will be great. And just lots of Nesson, lots of, like you said, watching minor little kids play hockey.
Not little kids, teenagers.
Yeah, they're getting there. They're getting there. I know. I keep saying, well, my guy's a little littler than everybody else,
yes,
but he's getting there too. He's a goalie.
So, yeah, he's a goalie for those who don't know. He's a goalie taken after his dad. I imagine it's stressful as hell.
Check out Evan's article on him. How about that? I'll plug both of you for that. Wherever you can find that. Thank you.
I did mention Mason on New England Hockey Journal. Anyways, Razor, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your insight. This has been great. And that's been this week's Bruins Beat. I'm Evan Marinofksy, Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.